They think they can get to you. They try. They push your buttons. They throw insults, ignore your efforts, disrespect your boundaries. But what if I told you that you hold a secret power they'll never understand? The power to stay unshaken. The power to be so grounded, so focused, that nothing and no one can steal your peace. It's not just a fantasy. It's a skill. And it's time you master it. Anger is a thief. It robs you of clarity. It hijacks your peace. It makes you reactive instead of wise. And the worst part, it gives power to people who don't deserve it. Every time you get angry or bothered, you're letting someone else run your emotions. You're letting them win. But what if you refuse to play their game? Non-reaction is one of the most underestimated forms of power. In a world where everyone feels the need to respond, to clap back, to defend, the person who remains calm stands out as unshakable. When someone insults you, mocks you, or tries to provoke you, the natural reaction is to fire back, to prove a point, to reassert yourself. But the truth is, the moment you engage, you step into their world. You let them pull you into their drama. You allow them to control your emotional state. That's exactly what they want. They don't want peace, they want power. And they gain that power every time they get a rise out of you. Not reacting doesn't mean you're weak or passive. It means you've reached a level of self-mastery where you no longer need to prove anything. You don't let small people with small minds pull you into small arguments. You understand that true strength isn't loud, it's quiet. It doesn't need to shout. It just is. The person who controls their emotions, who can sit in the storm and remain still, is the one who is truly in control. Most people are reactors. They're ruled by their impulses, quick to anger, easily provoked. But when you choose not to react, you separate yourself from the masses. You elevate. You become the observer, not the participant in their emotional chaos. Non-reaction is not about indifference. It's about intentional stillness. It's about deciding in that crucial moment that your peace is more valuable than proving your point, that your energy is more important than winning a temporary battle. Some people feed off your reaction. They measure their significance by how much they can disturb others. But when you remain unmoved, you starve their need for validation. You rob them of the attention they crave. You send a clear message. You don't have access to my peace. And over time, people learn. They stop trying to provoke you because they know it won't work. You're not the same person anymore. You've become emotionally untouchable. Choosing not to react doesn't mean you tolerate everything. It means you pick your battles wisely. You understand the difference between a worthy fight and a waste of time. You know when to speak and when silence is louder. Most of the time, silence cuts deeper than any words. It speaks volumes about your self-restraint and emotional maturity. People expect resistance. They expect drama. When you respond with nothing, they're left confused, powerless, and exposed. It's not your job to educate or correct every fool that crosses your path. Sometimes the best lesson you can give someone is showing them they no longer affect you. Anger is rarely about the present moment. Most of the time, it's a reaction rooted in something deeper, something unresolved within you. When someone says something that irritates or offends you, it's not always the words themselves that hurt. It's what those words touch inside you. These emotional triggers are often connected to past experiences, childhood wounds, or feelings of inadequacy you've carried for years. When a person makes a comment about your intelligence, appearance, or worth, and it causes an intense emotional reaction, that's not just about them. That's about a wound you've never fully healed. And as long as those wounds remain unhealed, anyone can touch them and control your emotional state. Healing your triggers is one of the most powerful things you can do to protect your peace. Because when you don't heal them, you'll spend your life reacting to everyone and everything that reminds you of that past pain. You'll misinterpret words, take things personally, and feel attacked even when no attack was intended. It's exhausting to live like that, constantly on edge, emotionally raw, always one comment away from losing control. But when you do the inner work to understand where your anger comes from, it begins to lose its grip on you. You begin to see that the problem isn't the world around you. It's the pain within you that hasn't been acknowledged, felt, and released. No one else is responsible for your emotional responses. People can say what they want, act how they want, live how they want. That's their business. But how you respond, that's your responsibility. And you can only take true responsibility for your emotions once you understand what's really fueling them. The moment you realize your anger is a reflection of unresolved parts of you, you gain the power to change. You stop giving your emotional power away to every person who pushes your buttons. You stop being a victim of your past. You begin to respond from a place of clarity rather than pain. Healing doesn't mean forgetting what happened. It means finally allowing yourself to feel what you buried long ago. It means giving yourself compassion, facing your past without judgment, and slowly releasing the grip it has on your present. Some of the things that made you angry last year won't even bother you after healing. That's how you know you're growing. What used to trigger you becomes something you observe instead of something you become. The more you heal, the less you react. The less you react, the more control you have over your life. People stop being able to manipulate you with their words, actions, or silence. Healing your triggers is not just about peace. It's about freedom. Freedom from the invisible chains of your past. Freedom from needing others to behave a certain way for you to feel okay. When your peace comes from within, it no longer depends on who's around you or what they say. You become emotionally sovereign. You're no longer waiting for the world to be kind. You've built a world inside you that already is. Anger may feel like an uncontrollable force, something that happens to you without warning, but the truth is anger is a choice. It might be an unconscious one at first, but it's a decision nonetheless. Every time someone says something offensive or does something irritating, you have a moment, a small space of time where you get to decide how to respond. In that tiny space lies your power. Do you let your emotions take over, or do you pause, breathe, and choose a different response? Most people believe their anger is justified, that it's the only natural reaction to disrespect or injustice. But in reality, anger is one option among many, and choosing it often leads to more harm than clarity. When you begin to understand that anger is a mental habit, something you've practiced over and over, you also realize it's something you can unlearn. You don't have to react the way you always have. You can interrupt the pattern. You can break the cycle. The moment you say, I don't have to get angry about this, you take control back from the situation or person trying to steal your peace. You're not denying your feelings. You're acknowledging that you're more than your emotion. You're the one driving, not your rage, not your pride, not your ego. And that shift changes everything. You start to see situations from a new perspective. Someone cuts you off in traffic, not a personal attack, just a human being in a hurry. A coworker disrespects you, not a sign of your worth, but a reflection of their own lack of control. A friend breaks your trust, not a reason to explode, but a lesson in boundaries. Each moment that once triggered your anger becomes a chance to practice restraint and grow stronger in your response. You begin to ask yourself, is this worth my peace? More often than not, the answer is no. The more you ask that question, the less you choose anger. The less you choose anger, the more calm and clarity you experience. Choosing not to get angry doesn't mean you allow bad behavior or let people walk over you. It means you respond with logic and strength rather than emotional outbursts. It means you know how to address a problem without becoming the problem. Emotional intelligence begins when you stop reacting and start responding. When you realize that your reaction is the only thing truly within your control, you protect your power. You stop leaking energy into arguments that go nowhere. You stop feeding people who thrive on conflict. You stop being predictable and easy to provoke. Every time you stay calm in a situation where you once would have exploded, you're winning, you're growing, you're taking control of your life on a level most people never even attempt. It's not about suppressing your anger. It's about outgrowing the need for it. When you recognize that your emotional response is always your responsibility, you stop blaming others and start building yourself. That's the beginning of real freedom. Your energy is your currency, and how you spend it determines the quality of your life. If you're constantly giving your energy to things that drain you, arguments, drama, toxic people, petty situations, you'll always feel tired, frustrated, and emotionally bankrupt. Most people don't realize how much of their power they're giving away every single day. They allow someone's rude comment to ruin their mood. They let a minor inconvenience spiral into an emotional meltdown. They stay in conversations that go in circles and try to convince people who are committed to misunderstanding them. But when you truly value your peace, you start protecting it like your most precious asset. Protecting your energy means being intentional about what and who you give your attention to. Not everyone deserves access to you. Not every conflict is worth your reaction. Not every invitation to drama requires your attendance. When you understand this, you stop explaining yourself to people who don't listen, and you stop trying to change people who don't want to grow. You stop proving yourself to those who have already made up their minds about you. Your silence becomes your shield. Your boundaries become your filter. You choose peace over proving a point, clarity over chaos, and self-respect over emotional exhaustion. The world is full of noise, and it's easy to get caught up in it. But just because the noise is loud doesn't mean you have to participate in it. You don't need to respond to every insult, defend every opinion, or match every disrespectful tone. When you do, you let others dictate your emotional climate. You become reactive instead of proactive. And in that state, you're not living. You're just surviving from one emotional trigger to the next. But when you protect your energy, you create space for inner stillness, focus, and real joy. You begin to thrive instead of just survive. Your peace should be non-negotiable. If someone constantly disturbs it, you don't argue, you adjust your distance. You learn to walk away, not in anger, but in alignment with what's best for your mental and emotional health. You start choosing environments that feel safe, people who uplift you, and conversations that nourish you. You prioritize rest over resentment, solitude over senseless battles, and purpose over pointless interaction. You understand that peace isn't something you find, it's something you create and protect. When you begin valuing your energy, you notice who and what wastes it. You stop participating in emotional games, guilt trips, and one-sided relationships. You stop internalizing other people's dysfunction as your responsibility. You understand that their chaos is not your emergency. The more you guard your energy, the stronger you become. You develop emotional discipline. You choose calm over conflict. And in that choice, you create a life that feels light, intentional, and free. You no longer chase closure, control, or validation. You simply protect your space and move in peace. The ability to pause before reacting is one of the most powerful emotional tools you can ever develop. That tiny gap between stimulus and response is where your power lives. Most people don't realize they even have that option. They hear something offensive, see something triggering, or experience a moment of disrespect, and immediately they explode. That knee-jerk reaction becomes their default. But what if in that split second you trained yourself to pause instead of react? That single pause could change the course of your day, your relationships, and even your life. The pause gives you clarity. It allows your mind to catch up with your emotions. When you pause, you move from unconscious reaction to conscious choice. You can ask yourself, is this worth my energy? Is there a better way to handle this? What's really going on here? Instead of being swept away by the first wave of anger, you become an observer of your own thoughts and feelings. That space gives you time to see the situation more clearly, to spot the trap of emotional manipulation, and to rise above the bait. People who can't pause often regret what they say and do in anger. Words spoken in heat burn bridges that can't be rebuilt. Reactions made in a split second can cause damage that takes years to undo. But the person who learns to pause gains a superpower. They can de-escalate conflict, disarm aggressive behavior, and protect their own peace without saying a single word. In that pause, you shift from being a victim of your emotions to being the master of them. You no longer get dragged into every emotional battlefield. You pick your responses with wisdom instead of letting your emotions pick them for you. The pause is a discipline, and like any discipline, it takes practice. You won't master it overnight. At first, you might still react, but you'll notice the moment right after when you could have paused. With time and intention, that moment becomes longer. Eventually, it becomes instinct. You don't just survive emotional storms, you navigate through them like a seasoned sailor. You gain control not by overpowering others, but by mastering yourself. And that mastery is rare, it's respected, it's powerful. Learning to pause doesn't mean you suppress your feelings. It means you respect your feelings enough not to let them control you. You give yourself the grace to feel anger without being ruled by it. You acknowledge the fire, but you don't let it burn down everything in its path. That kind of control builds inner strength. It builds trust in yourself. People begin to see you as calm, composed, and wise, not because you learn to manage it with maturity. In a world that rewards loud voices and instant reactions, the ability to pause is a quiet rebellion. It separates those who live in reaction from those who live in purpose. It's the line between chaos and control, between regret and respect. The more you practice the pause, the more peace you invite into your life. Not everything requires your reaction, and not everyone deserves your response. The more you grow, the more you begin to realize how much energy is wasted trying to defend yourself, prove a point, or correct people who have already decided who you are. Silence becomes a powerful response when you no longer feel the need to engage with everything that tries to disturb your peace. People will test your boundaries, misunderstand your intentions, and sometimes even try to provoke you just to get a rise out of you. But when you understand the value of your inner calm, you stop handing it out to anyone who demands it. Your reaction is a form of energy, and when you spend it on people who thrive on chaos or conflict, you're investing in something that only drains you. Responding to every insult, every passive-aggressive comment, or every misjudgment keeps you locked in a cycle of defensiveness and emotional exhaustion. But choosing not to respond doesn't make you weak. It doesn't mean you're avoiding confrontation or suppressing your voice. It means you're in control. You know who you are, and that alone is enough. You don't need to argue for your worth. You don't need to clarify your intentions to those who are committed to misunderstanding them. That kind of self-assurance speaks louder than any reaction ever could. Some people try to get under your skin just to feel powerful. They throw jabs, stir drama, or bait you with criticism, hoping to see you react. And the moment you do, they win. Not because they were right, but because they successfully pulled you into their energy. But when you don't respond, when you simply observe, acknowledge, and detach, they're left powerless. They can't touch what doesn't engage. Your calm becomes their confusion. Your silence becomes your strength. Responding to everything also keeps your mind cluttered. You carry the weight of unnecessary battles, replaying arguments in your head, crafting the perfect comeback, or wondering how you could have handled things differently. That mental noise is a distraction from your goals, your peace, and your progress. But when you let go of the need to react, your mind clears. You make space for better thoughts, deeper focus, and stronger alignment with your values. You stop living in reaction and start living on purpose. Choosing not to react also creates a powerful boundary. It tells others that you're not available for negativity, manipulation, or petty behavior. You're not playing the game. You're not on the same frequency. And over time, people learn that your silence speaks volumes. You're not avoiding. They simply no longer have access to your energy. You protect your peace not by hiding from the world, but by choosing how and where you show up emotionally. That selective engagement is not selfish, it's self-respect. You begin to interact with the world from a place of power, not from a place of pressure. And that shift changes not only how others treat you, but how you see yourself. Inner peace doesn't come from controlling everything around you. It comes from mastering what's within you. The truth is, you can't control what people say, what they think, how they treat you, or the unpredictable moments life throws at you. But you can control how you interpret those things, how much power you give them, and how you choose to respond when you make the decision to protect your inner state. No matter what's happening outside, you step into a version of yourself that is unshakable. That doesn't mean you become cold or disconnected. It means you refuse to let the chaos of the world infect the calm you've worked so hard to build. So many people live in a constant state of reaction, letting external events dictate their mood, their actions, and their emotional health. A rude comment can ruin their whole day. A slight change in plans can send them into frustration. Someone else's behavior can turn their mind into a storm. But when you start focusing on managing your internal world instead of trying to fix the external one, everything shifts. You begin to notice that peace isn't something you find when everything around you is perfect. Peace is something you cultivate when you choose not to let imperfections own you. Emotional maturity means understanding that you are not at the mercy of what happens to you. You're not powerless. You're not a puppet being pulled by every negative interaction or challenge. You're the observer, the decider, the one who gets to say, this does not deserve my attention. It takes real strength to remain calm when you feel like yelling. It takes courage to choose patience when frustration is knocking on your door. It takes wisdom to sit with discomfort instead of projecting it onto others. And all of that is developed through the practice of mastering your internal state. Life will always test you. There will always be someone who challenges your peace, situations that feel unfair, and moments that feel overwhelming. But none of that has the power to disturb you unless you allow it to. Mastering your internal state is about building a kind of emotional resilience where your peace becomes your baseline, not your reward. You don't wait for things to calm down to feel calm. You bring the calm with you. You don't wait for others to respect you before you feel worthy. You carry your worth regardless of how others behave. It's not about denying your emotions or pretending everything is fine. It's about learning how to sit with your emotions without being ruled by them. It's about creating enough space between you and your triggers that you can see them for what they are, opportunities to grow, not excuses to explode. The more you practice this kind of self-mastery, the more power you reclaim. You become grounded, you become centered, and the external world loses its ability to shake you because the foundation inside you is no longer fragile. Your mindset is the lens through which you experience the world, and when you intentionally train your mind to expect peace instead of conflict, everything changes. Most people are unconsciously programmed to anticipate stress, drama, or confrontation. They wake up already bracing for what might go wrong, assuming someone will upset them, something will frustrate them, or life will disappoint them. That expectation becomes a magnet. When your mind is set on finding problems, it will find them everywhere, even in peaceful moments. But when you train your mind to look for calm, to lean into patience, and to default to peace, you start attracting more of it into your life. This shift doesn't happen overnight. It requires intentional effort, just like building any other habit. You start by paying attention to your thoughts. You begin catching yourself when your mind drifts toward negativity, worry, or judgment. Instead of feeding those thoughts, you pause and redirect. You train your brain to ask different questions. What's good in this moment? How can I remain grounded right now? Is this really a threat or just a habit of reacting? Over time, these questions rewire your mental pathways. You become less reactive, not because your life got easier, but because your mind got stronger. Your thoughts are powerful. They create emotions, which influence behavior, which ultimately shapes your experiences. So when you allow your thoughts to spiral into resentment, defensiveness, or anger, your entire energy follows. But when your thoughts are rooted in clarity, understanding, and intentional calm, your emotions begin to settle. The world around you may stay the same, but how you move through it becomes entirely different. You gain control not by fixing the outside, but by mastering the inside. Most conflicts start in the mind before they ever reach your mouth. Someone says something and your brain interprets it as an attack. Before they've even finished speaking, you're planning your defense. But a trained mind hears beyond the trigger. It pauses long enough to process, to question, and to choose a thoughtful response instead of a defensive reaction. That's the power of training your mindset. To create space between what happens and what you do about it. This kind of mindset doesn't make you passive, it makes you powerful. You don't ignore problems, you face them with clarity and strength. You don't tolerate disrespect, you address it with boundaries and wisdom. You don't suppress your voice, you use it when it matters most, but you do all of it from a place of peace, not a place of panic. That peace becomes your power, and it starts with what you allow yourself to think every day. The way you talk to yourself when no one is listening sets the tone for how you handle the world when everyone is watching. If your inner dialogue is always defensive, judgmental, or anxious, your outer reactions will mirror that. But if your mind is calm, steady, and focused, your presence will carry that energy wherever you go. And that's what separates those who constantly feel attacked from those who walk through life with unshakable grace.